You are listening to Something Rather Than Nothing. Creator and host, Ken Vellante. Editor and producer, Peter Bauer.
Hello, everybody. This is Ken Vellante with Something Rather Than Nothing podcast. I have Rachael Renae on the show, and you're going to hear some enthusiasm in my voice because Rachael's new book, Prioritize Play, is out. And in case you're wondering who Rachael is an artist, play enthusiast, and creativity hype gal based in Detroit, Michigan. She helps people prioritize play to overcome creative blocks, better connect with themselves and their people, and confidently live big, fulfilling lives. When she's not facilitating play workshops or co-hosting the Chaotic Creatives podcast, she's likely gabbing with pals over voice notes and making a weird papier-mache project. Yes, Rachael, you're perfect for the show. Welcome on.
Thank you so much for having me. Thrilled to be here.
It's a weird note to connect on, but very rarely I see people chatting over voice notes, which is something that I do. And I think there's nobody in the world, not nobody in the world, you do it. But I try to build up the habits in other people because my brain processes everything. And I'm thinking, if I want to talk to you, Rachael, I'm going to leave you 2.5 minutes, everything that's in my head, and leave a voice note for you. So.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love it. I feel like it's in today's age when it's harder to connect in person. I feel better connected when I can hear my friend's voice and give an update. You know, it's like, yeah, we could do a phone call and we do those, but sometimes you just want to share a little piece of information, share a little thing that happened in your day. And I like to do that via voice note.
Yeah, and we say it's a little piece of information, but it could be a lot. It could be a lot, but I love it. I interview a lot of artists, guests, and authors and those who put out books. Take us into like right now. I always get excited for an author. You know, you got your book out there. I saw there was just an absolutely fantastic kind of like event that you put on, book launch, but. With everything that's going on right now with Prioritize Play, just been out for just a week or two. Rachael, tell us about what it's been like, with this book out in the world and what's been going on for you lately.
Yeah. It's 2 weeks today, the day we're recording, that the book has been out. And it still doesn't feel real for me because this is my first book. But I'm getting so much great feedback already. People saying that they're loving it, that it is impacting them, that they're sharing it with their people. And that's exactly what I hope to do. I just want people to realize that we are in charge of creating the lives that we want. And play, I think, is a really approachable tool that we can use to start doing that.
It's a great guide. Like, I don't know what the term like guide, but like just listeners, as a book, it's a beautiful and inviting book, with illustrations and lots of activities. And like, once you hear activities, like a lot of us like rush through books but like with the activities, like, in going through it, there's things for me to do later. There's things that I can do right now. And even just what I wrote, like on one of these prompts, I had this amazing experience when I looked at the prompt and I'm like, I don't even remember writing that idea down. And it was just last week. And I'm like, that's a really strange idea. So just the type of thing where it captures, where you're at. We're talking about play here. And of course, I'm assuming with us being artistically inclined, like play isn't so abnormal, but culturally, I think you deal with this, right? Like you talk to people right now, everybody's so busy, right? Like speed up of the world, whatever it's moving towards. And then artists point to, as you do, and discover, hey, look, you're super creative by you being a human. In re-engaging with play, which some people might find frivolous, but what is it that you want to do, helping folks, and whether it's going back in time or finding the activity that they want? Why play? And what does play like lead us to, like, as far as a human artist?
Yeah. I started using the language of play because I have always been a creative person, but I think I buried it to kind of chase these societal expectations that I didn't even realize I was chasing, sort of like the career milestones and the social milestones of find a partner, get married, buy a house, mow your lawn. Like,
Yeah.
I think so many of us fall into, especially into adulthood, like you said, we're so busy, and it's easy to kind of get caught up in the urgency and the like, I have to spend all of my time being productive. I have to climb the career ladder. I have to do these things in order to feel successful. And without realizing it, our life is kind of passively happening to us. And I think that that is what was happening to me, and my creativity that I was stifling to kind of chase those milestones, even subconsciously. I don't think it was a conscious effort. The creativity was bubbling up. It was just like, you got to let me out. I need to have an outlet. And my story is interwoven in the book, and I talk about how I was using my career title as my identity without realizing it. And I just don't think that humans are meant to identify with their jobs. I think we're meant to identify with the things that light us up and how we connect with people. Like, we ask kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they say, and adults expect answers like fireman, teacher, engineer, lawyer, whatever. But you could ideally expect answers of, I want to be funny. I want to be a good friend. I want to be kind. I want to be creative. But the way that our culture is right now, that's not sort of the mindset that our society encourages. And so I explored my creativity, and I got to a point where I was putting a ton of pressure on it to make money. And then I was like, I just want to do something for fun, for me.
Yeah.
And when I gave myself permission to do that, my life changed. I was like, oh, this doesn't have to have any purpose other than making me happy. And when I started doing that, I started chasing more things like that. But when I started talking about it in the terms of creativity, because like you said, we're artists, that's kind of how we think. I got a lot of pushback from people saying, well, that's easy for you. You're creative. I'm not creative. And I just think that creativity is a natural human urge or experience. It's just that we have such narrow views of what creativity is. So
Yeah.
people in general might think of creativity as making a painting or dressing in a weird way, but it could be making a meal, or it could be how you invite conversation over dinner. And I realized that if I use the language of play, it's approachable to more people while still getting at that creativity outlet. And that was a long-winded answer to your question.
Oh, this is long-winded show.
Great.
No, like, so I've talked towards over 300 episodes on the show, and I found it fascinating for me that my interaction with artists develops the show and moves it to a different way. And one of the pieces it did is, like, I started as like art and philosophy show, right? Like, kick it around. It kind of means like I could talk to anybody who's a creative. But the piece that I added on, like, soon thereafter, people asked what the show is. I said it's art and philosophy and liberation. And like, for me, it was like everybody I was talking to, nobody had it all figured out. We're humans, but they were liberating themselves from an idea, from the childhood negative criticism, from the partner that said you have to make money this way and that. Like, there was this liberation process, which for me, social activists and such, is like so important. I love being around people where they're like, I'm going to shed this and I'm going to add that. And it was a surprise for me to experience that through the journey of doing the show. It's like, you think you create what it is, and this is what it is. And then you're like, oh, since I embarked on this, I'm in a different place. And I gotta recognize that. Talking about, like, when you talked about your shift, it's like, the idea of a total transformation. and freeing. You were engineering, right? Weren't you?
Yep.
Right. So yeah.
Yep.
So like I was reading that, I was like, oh gosh, like I could see the hard not necessarily, but like a hard tension building up there. I was talking about the podcast and my podcast, like in this, like the sense of exploration. And I've listened to your podcast, Chaotic Creatives, and I really, really enjoy it. I wanted to ask you that particular way of going through the issues that you talk about. What has the podcast done, like as a way of you developing your big themes?
Oh, I love that you talked about your experience with like realizing that liberation came with it too, because I feel the same way about my journey, but also about the podcast, where it's like I have these ideas and general philosophies on my work or connecting with people or art in general. And just through conversations with other curious people, and my podcast co-host is another curious person.
Yeah.
These through lines emerge and you don't even realize that it's happening. But I always go back and listen to our episodes so I can be like, what did we talk about? Because it's conversational, we ramble, go on a side quest, but there are through lines that emerge. And I think that's what's so beautiful about conversations, and like the sort of lack of expectation that we put on the podcast. Is just like, hey, let's talk about the things that we're going through, because that's ultimately relatable to people. And I'm sure you've experienced that as well. But just through curiosity, there's so much learning that can happen in a conversation even.
Yeah, and the ability to be wrong, which, not wrong, but you know what I'm saying? Like when you, the expectations and you're off and stuff, you have to, like in the whole bit, like you talk about it in the book, in that growth and the cringe is what makes us real. Like, and for me, like, I want to read you a little part of the book that was like super important, for me.
Great.
And
I can't wait to hear.
Yeah. So you ask the initial reflection questions in the beginning of the book, and then you say, are there things you want to work on changing or evolving? I still frequently think of myself as, quote unquote, annoying, but I know that my enthusiasm is actually one of my superpowers. Being too much is relative. I'm obnoxious to some people, but not expressive enough to others. Once we start to identify the traits we want to be perceived with, and we identify which negative traits we associate with ourselves, we can start to work on them. And I think like there's such like an affirmation of like the too muchness that is there. And it's just the language that you use just like really kicked to me, because I've said that in my life. Like whether it's in relationships, and like it can, when you have a lot of energy and enthusiasm, be like when you're engaging with people and you see them trail off and they don't dislike you or anything like that, but you see that. So it really recognized a phenomenon, but also like going in and being like, you know what, like I'm me, and I'm not too much or too little. That was like really pivotal, like for me to read, and I think it's really good. Like as a basis when you're going into play, is like, don't take yourself so seriously, make mistakes. Who gives a fuck what other people are saying when you're going down to it and you're lining in with what you want to do? And that was a great affirmation to me. How'd you get to that point where you could say that in that journey for you? How did you get to that point where you're just like, I am me? I
mean, like I say in the book, it's imperfect. I talk about imperfect action, and I think I mean, I still feel that way. I still feel like I'm annoying, but it's like being aware of it is the first step. And then giving myself, like treating myself as if I were talking to a best friend, where it's like, I don't think you're annoying. I think you're amazing. And the right people will find you as long as you're being yourself. And I think for so long, I dimmed a lot of my light and enthusiasm because I wanted to be taken seriously and be a
Yeah.
professional. And I think so many people do that. And we can be taken seriously when we are enthusiastic. I think when we can find the things like our natural like gifts and talents, when we can be living in that world, it doesn't matter how enthusiastic or like obnoxious you are, you can still be serious. Like I literally wrote a book about play because I'm
Yeah.
so excited about it.
And worked hard on it.
I worked hard. Yeah. And one doesn't negate the other. And I think for a long time, I thought that it did. Like, oh, well, if I'm like giggly and asking silly questions and I'm wholesome, then I will not be taken seriously. And or I'm not attracting the like cool, quote unquote cool people into my life. And I don't want to attract quote unquote cool people. I want to attract people who are authentically connecting with me because we have shared interests and they value what I value in myself. So to answer your question, I think a lot of it was therapy and self-reflection and
Sure.
thinking about like, okay, why do I feel insecure about this thing? Or like, can I name it? And I think that's what I try to get people to do in the book is like, just becoming aware of the maybe limiting beliefs that we have about ourselves and what we're allowed to have in our lives. And a lot of that is just like, you know, from like you mentioned earlier, experiences like getting criticized in your elementary art school class or you know, you had a rough childhood or a bad partner or a bad boss. All of us have these limiting experiences. And it's kind of like, how can we work to acknowledge them and be nice to ourselves and just like really think about what lights me up the most?
Yeah.
What's going to make me happiest in my life? And like, if judgment weren't an issue, if money weren't an issue, how would I want to live? And we may not be able to do that because we live in a world where judgment and money are issues and we have to pay our bills. But what little steps can we take to kind of like just be in the direction of the life that we're craving or yearning for?
Yeah. I love that spot. Talk about some art questions. And what I wanted to ask you is when did you see yourself as an artist? When did that happen? Like, was it a moment or?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's when I first started doing talk therapy, maybe like 6 or 7 years ago, I remember feeling this discontent with my life. Like just like, oh, I just sort of feel like I want something bigger, but I can't articulate what it is. Like this isn't the life I'm supposed to live. But I don't know what life I'm supposed to live. I just don't feel good. And it, you know, through classic therapy questions, we got to the point where I couldn't even call myself a creative, even though anyone that knows me for my entire life would say that I'm a creative
Really?
person.
You couldn't even say that? Yeah.
I couldn't even say creative. And so like to first admit, like, I want to be an artist, that felt like I'm not allowed to have that. I didn't go to art school. I don't have, you know, disposable income that I can just like live off of so that I can make art all day and lounge around in southern France. Like I had these like judgments and these like expectations of what it meant to be an artist. And so through a lot of reflection, and I've read a million self-help books, The Artist's Way was really impactful. I quote Julia Cameron a lot in the book. I realized like, oh, it's not selfish to want to live the life that I want to live. And that's okay. And so I do this thing where I tell the people I work with, like, what title do you want to have? And for me, it's like capital A artist. And I say we got to cosplay as that version until it feels real. So I was introducing myself as an artist, and I did this on the podcast. I said it. I was like, I'm on my podcast, Chaotic Craves. I was like, I'm going to practice introducing myself as an artist.
Sure.
And so I did that for like a season. Still didn't feel real. I think I am still in the practicing phase. I think I know it's true. I'm making art. I make art every day. But I don't know what it will take for it to feel like this is real. So I'm like, I'm okay with cosplaying as it if it takes forever, you know? This is my armor. It's my, you know, costume that I'm putting on of artist, and then eventually it won't feel so much like a costume.
Wow. Wow. I was just listening to your answer. I was, it's like a great surprise, but it makes, inherent sense. Well, let me ask, we're using like art in like the big word art. What is art? What do you view as art in your relationship, with you being an artist?
Hmm. I love this question, and I think I like being naive to like the capital A art world. Like
Mm.
I like you said, I was an engineer. I went to engineering college. That's what my degrees are in. I have no formal art education, so I don't know how things work. And for a long time, I felt like that was to my detriment. But I actually think like me being naive to things gives me freedom. Like I have no idea what I'm quote unquote supposed to do, so I just do what feels good. And art for me, in this exploration that I've been in the last couple of years, is making the weird shit in my brain, but really processing what I'm feeling. And it doesn't have to be an exact representation of that, but art is a practice that I'm doing to connect with myself. It's not necessarily about the product, it's about the process of making.
Yeah. Yeah. I just love that answer. What's the, I ask also, like, right now, anybody I talk to, I don't know, it's my own disposition, right? Like, let's take the world frame right now, 2026, like temperatures getting hotter, and you got these fucking data centers that are gobbling up water, and like everything, like geopolitical stuff. And so the times feel different. They feel different to me. I also know that humans always think the end is coming. It's always around the corner. I also know that too. But is there something about the role of art right now as we're talking 2026? Is there something different about the role of art, or is art just arting as it has in a different way?
Ooh, that's a good question. I feel, again, because I feel so naive to sort of the corporate art world. Like, I don't know anything about galleries or what it means to be successful. I know what it means for me to be successful, and I think we all need to define our own level of success. And that's just like, I get to make my art. That's it. That's success for me, is like I have the space, time, and resources to make what I want to make.
Heck yeah.
But I think art is more, and maybe like you said, humans have always thought that the end is coming. We're living in the worst possible timeline,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but I think it's so important because I think we're all, so many of us are like cogs in this like late stage capitalist machine where we don't have time and we've lost our sense of community and identity. And I think art and play for me are tools that we can use to reconnect with ourselves, to figure out like, what does it mean to be me? Like, who am I? What makes me happy? What do I enjoy doing? And then also by doing that, the more that we can figure out who we are and live that version, cosplay as that version of ourselves that we want to be, the more we'll be able to connect with others who feel the same way, and disconnect from sort of that productivity. I'm only successful if I'm making a lot of money, if I'm climbing the corporate ladder, like the liberation that you talked about, where it's like we need to redefine what success in life means. And I think art is a huge component of that, that we have maybe lost, but many of us are finding our way back to. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, sure, it sure does. I've been noticing, like, even in talking in the conversation, and talking about like the lack of background. I'm fascinated by that because like my trajectory and like using art or thinking about being an artist is, um I can tell you for sure that I've literally never had a formal art class, like an extended formal art class. I know it, and I've loved doing this. as I've lived, I've dropped into like workshops and stuff like that and been enthralled by that. So it's been intermittent and absolutely enjoyed that. But even like art history, anything I would know anything about that is completely self-taught. I don't know the biographies in general of creators except for listen like other podcasts. I'm interested in it, but it's like there's something about like this conversation with like lack of formal training that like is that it seems like just so cool. Like and even my approach to philosophy when I first started was like I took a philosophy of art class. It was still like, and I love the conceptual questions, but it was still like, what is this big thing art from the outside? But I find it so strange because it's a tough thing for maybe for me to overcome and you to overcome too, of being like, why the hell do you say anything about art if you haven't done this? And I think just kind of like disregarding that and put it back to like play and creativity as being like, hey, whether it's a cosplay or not, we're looking pretty good. Like, you know, like we're doing our thing and then talking about it, in a real way. I wanted, because I saw the video of your book launch, I want to tell the audience, of how you did that. It had so many different components, but why don't you just drop in a little bit like about the book launch itself and some of the creative, activity that you built around the launch?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it ties into the sort of the conversation about like the lack of training and just like being okay with being naive. Like so many adults think they can't do something because they're going to be bad at it. And it's like, you're allowed to be bad. We can be bad at things. We can be, you know, childlike at the things that we want to try. We don't have to be good. We don't have to aspire to be good at things to enjoy doing them. And that is what I told myself with the book launch party. I was like, okay, there are traditional ways that people have launched books. This is a non-traditional book. It's creativity, it's self-help. There's a little bit of play. There's a lot of play. But there's also a little bit of my story. And I want to have those facets in that I talk about in the book represented in the book launch party. So I rented a warehouse in Detroit. And I love attention to detail, which I talk about in the book. I think when we're paying attention and we're intentional about every part of our lives, it's more fulfilling. And so I wanted everyone to come to this party and feel like, oh my God, she thought of everything. And this is so silly and fun. So I had all these stations. So people got at the door when they checked in, they got a goodie bag filled with dice and pom-poms and a postcard and stickers and just like fun merch, because I love that kind of stuff, like custom merch. And then they got a novelty cup that was either shaped like a smiley face, a basketball, or a dice. And then they walk into the party and there's all these different stations. And one was I hired a face painter, and this is an adults party. It's not a children's birthday party. And that face painter was busy all night. Like she had to be like, yeah. I'm done. I'm sorry.
My hands hurt.
Yeah. And that makes me so happy because it's like, how often are adults getting their faces painted? Like if there's a face painter at an event that I went to, I would be like, oh, I feel bad. The kids are waiting. I'm not going to stand in line and wait. And this was giving permission. And I think giving permission is what the book is about. And so there was the face painter. I had a photo booth station. I had a collage table where I brought all my collage materials and people could make laminated bookmarks. I have this exercise in the book called making a playlist, like a to-do list filled with only play activities. And I do this seasonally because I feel like it's easy to kind of think back to what did I like to do in the winter as a kid? Have a snowball fight, drink hot chocolate. And those little tiny actions are what can help propel us into this life of play and creativity. So I made big poster board with empty playlists and had people write their favorite seasonal activities. I had these silly questions for conversation. I had my friends are really talented chefs, like home chefs, and they made this 6-foot-long sandwich that we cut up into a bunch of pieces. So there's just this visual impact of a huge sandwich.
Yeah.
And then the biggest part, and I think maybe this ties into the like, when did I feel like an artist, or when am I feeling validated in that feeling, is I was like, well, it's my party. I'm going to have an art gallery with all the work that I've created. And
Hell
so
yeah.
I had a corner that was all of the work that I'm stoked about. And I set it up like an art gallery on the white pillars and labeled everything. And it was magical. I had a bingo card. So everyone had activities to do, because at big social events I sometimes get overwhelmed. I'm like, I don't know if I want to talk to a bunch of strangers all the time. So if there's an activity for me at an event, I'm so happy.
Yeah.
And so there were things like check out the art gallery, write your silly question, get your face painted, eat a part of the big sandwich. And then if they got a bingo, they could enter in, and I made these prize packs with lots of fun. So all of this, all of those stations represented this like playful energy that I'm trying to get people to realize, like, we're allowed to do this in our lives. Like, I made this party up. I made this book up.
Hell yeah.
And you can do it too. So it was a blast.
Oh my gosh. I just want to hang out with you. uh, 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 you're up there, in Detroit, and, it's so wonderful to hear about, the book launch. There's another iteration of your creativity that I saw, and I was late in coming to it, was fashion and clothes. And I lost my mind on this piece. Like, the other stuff is, I love that. I've lost my mind on this piece because, like, another thing with like going through the show is two out of three guests are non male genders, and I also have talked to a lot of different indigenous guests over 30, and have moved into things that I didn't expect, like color and fashion. And I know you have this whole, I want to talk about clothes and fashion, because it was striking when I first saw images of you. I like, your clothes were like so wild and fantastic and like really cool. And then I was reading more about how finding yourself and your identity and doing that. And I do believe at the launch party, everybody was wearing monochromatic clothes, which you had directed. Talk about the clothes, the fashion, wearing color, and also like it seemed to me that you started to develop like a very large following, like of people being like, oh man, I'm going to follow Rachael, or be inspired by Rachael and what she's doing. Can you talk about that whole bit? Because that's so fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I forgot that part of the party. There's so many details of the party that I was like, even though this was a big one for me, this is number 20 detail. So I don't know if she's going to remember it. No, yeah, I did say, like, please wear color, monochrome encouraged. And I was curious, like, a couple of my friends were like, okay, what are you going to do when people don't follow that rule? And I was like, it's okay. I bet most people will. And sure enough, most people did. And it was visually impactful. Like,
yeah.
It was so cool that people did it. And the photographer that I hired, like, got the different color groups together. And I think color is such an underutilized thing in adult life. Like, it's easy to wear all black. We have, like, we had the millennial gray interior design aesthetic that was, had so many of us in a chokehold. And for me, color is creative expression. And yeah, I have had many like creative iterations. So when I was doing my engineering job, I was doing hand lettering, letterpress printing, and I had a stationery business, and I got really burnt out on that. And I was putting a lot of pressure on that. So I was like, okay, I love getting dressed. I love thrifting. I love putting together outfits that feel like me, that no one else has. And I really wanted to give myself an opportunity to explore that and accountability to sharing it. And so during a year or so after COVID started, we're all working from home. I'm wearing sweatpants and feeling pretty uninspired in my life. I was like, I'm going to do a creative challenge. And I decided to do these style challenges. I called them the Rachael Renae style challenges. And I was like, I'm going to post my outfits online. And part of it was like me wanting to feel comfortable feeling seen online,
Sure.
because so many people will say like, oh, I'm not comfortable with doing a reel on the internet, or I don't want people to judge me. And it's like, that's going to happen either way. So if you feel called to share your version of creativity, you should do it. And so it was like, I couldn't articulate that then, but looking back, I definitely was like, oh, I wanted to feel more seen. And so I created these style challenges. I made up prompts like monochrome Mondays or thrifted Thursdays, fancy Fridays. They got weirder and weirder as the months progressed. Like, we're doing barbecue summer as this week's theme. Like, like I'm wearing hot dog colors. Like, just silly. But what it allowed me to do is, one, feel more comfortable feeling seen, connect with people who were excited about the same things, because sometimes that's hard to do in person. And so that's why I love like online communities too, is because it's like we get to connect with people who are into the same exact thing as us. And then it was a practice in me showing up authentically, exploring my personal style. I was able to start articulating like, oh, I like these colors. I like these materials. And it was a blast. But I very quickly, like you said, I grew a following around these style challenges, people participating and connecting. And I made lots of friends online through that challenge. But then when maybe like a year into it, I got kind of like pigeonholed, and people were considering me like a fashion influencer.
Yeah.
And that's fine, but I was feeling stifled. I was like, that's not what I am. I don't want to tell people to buy this stuff. I want to give you permission to explore your style on your own. Like, let me help you with these prompts, because it's what helped me express myself creatively. And so that's where I started talking about creativity and creative expression and identity, because I was like, clothes are tools for me to show up as the identity that I want.
Yeah.
And then I got the pushback on the creativity terms, with people being like, well, that's you, not me. And that's why I was like, but we can play with clothes. And so, yeah, clothes are a very important part of my, I think, identity. I really, I know before we started recording, I showed you my vintage Green Bay Packers Super
Hell
Bowl
yeah.
shirt.
Shout out for that Green Bay Packers shirt, Rachel. Just point that out for everybody. Yes.
Yeah. And so like I love style, and I think style and clothes are tools to help us, again, cosplay as the version of ourselves we want to be. Like, if I want to be an artist, I'm going to dress a little bit more kooky. I'm going to wear more colors. I'm going to wear weird wide leg pants, because that will help me like step into that identity. So I think clothes are a really cool way to express ourselves creatively.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for chatting about that. I think clothes and color, one of the things that I've talked to guests before is like the development of my brain when I started painting and moving into, like, I started seeing a lot more different colors. And so your activities where you're pulling things out for the environment were very much like in my head of like seeing and pulling out. And once I started to do that, they're talking about like change, like physical change, like my brain started to see differently. And that was like, once I realized that happened, I was like, holy shit. And it was really through like painting, but I very much apply it to, like, speaking of monochromatic, I got this Adidas tracksuit that's specifically, the color is warm clay. And that damn suit, like I tell my people joke with me about, I said, that's my formal, I wear that thing anywhere, that warm clay Adidas tracksuit. I'm lined in. Lined in when I got that thing too. So
yes, and like that's what style is so cool, because it's like that is the piece or the set that makes you feel the most you. Like, I have a couple of pieces where I'm like, oh, I'm feeling insecure today, or I'm feeling low energy, or I'm feeling low.
yeah.
I'm gonna put on this 80s prom dress and go to Costco.
Hell yeah.
It doesn't matter. It's like they are tools that we can use to like hype ourselves up.
Yeah. So much to talk about. What's been with the book being out, any surprises as far as like surprises in the process, or somebody ran into, or things you're starting to hear about your own book?
Um, I haven't heard a lot yet. All good things, which are great. I haven't seen any negative reviews yet, which is fantastic, but I assume they'll come. I'm trying to mentally prepare for that. Um, I think I'm just really excited to see how this connects me with like more creative communities and getting this in the hands of more people and realizing like, yeah, play and creativity are tools that we can use to live for ourselves. I am excited to be doing some book events at some local libraries and local bookstores. I'm doing a virtual kind of workshop about play for Creative Mornings. Are you familiar with that?
No.
So I think it originally started in New York. I don't know all of the lore behind Creative Mornings, but it's like a group of designers started it, I think, where they would get together every Friday morning and just like chat about design work, being creatives. And then it expanded, and there are chapters in different major cities. But then they do these online things called field trips where you can sign up and you can talk about whatever your creative interest is. And so I'll be doing a field trip, which I'm excited about. I'm hoping that when more people read the book and like can understand what I mean when I say prioritize play,
Mm-hmm.
that it's not just like, oh, hey, go make time to go play basketball more, which if that's your play, do it.
Yeah.
But really it's like a mindset and lifestyle shift. And there are easy ways to start to do this in our lives. I just hope that I get to talk to more people. Like I would love to talk to like a corporate design team and be like, hey, I know you all are educated in the design world and I don't have any education, but like, what if we were piñatas? What would you look like and what would you be filled with? Which is one of the questions in the book.
That is one of the questions. And that is the question that I read. I went back and I read and I'm like, who did in God's green earth wrote this down? And it was me. And my piñata, right? So it's a piñata, what's it shaped as and what it's filled with. Check this out. It's the shape of a crucifix and filled with pomegranates. I'm like, I don't even remember writing that thing. It's a pretty wild idea, but I'm like,
was really
it's my
wild.
it's my handwriting and everything. I'm like, this last week. So it's like a simple thing for me. It reminds me a lot of times, you know, like when you write something down, your creative ideas, and you look at it and you're like, it's me, but it's like, I don't even remember thinking or writing that. And so that one of the pieces about the book is like kind of like writing that stuff down, messing with the book. But I thought it was the strangest thing. I was like, I wrote that down. So, a lot of fun. Yeah. So the creative question, piñata and what it's felt. I thought that was,
I'm so glad you did it. Yeah. I feel like that's what I was hoping to really put in the book, were like questions like that, where it's like you are being forced to be creative, but it's almost like I'm throwing you off so much with how weird it is that your limiting beliefs about like who you are don't come in yet. You just automatically answer. And I think like when we can sort of channel that like authentic version of ourselves, like I journal every day. And I have some examples like what you said, where I'm reading back and I'm like, where did this idea come from? I've never thought about that before in my life, but okay. And I'm like, did I not have my coffee? Like, was I still sleeping? Who is this? But I think like when we can sort of tap into that, like we're not filtering our thoughts, we're just answering. I think like that can help us tap into that creativity.
Yeah, there was a thought that I was thinking about, and maybe it was like Detroit that prompted it, you know. So I think in terms of like when you talk about our system and creative places, you know, I come from like working class background, and you know, people come from different backgrounds, and art always has like a different station or place, but I think in the context of like general economics and survivability, like there's this kind of like really like dark corner where it's absolutely frivolous and useless and not productive. And knowing that that's not the case, and like learning over time, like for working people, the reason why I was thinking of like Michigan, Detroit and stuff, like, because I know there's like, you know, I don't live it, but I know there's a renaissance of like creative activity and space and artists in that area. and it's like post rollout of, factories closing, everything that's happened to Detroit, which still stands as a fantastic city, but has gone through all that type of thing. There was such a tight connection in my head of like how like after this essential and semi collapse here, that there was space. There's political and social aspects to it, but there was a space opening up around that. So it almost like in my head, like the place for that to emerge in like almost like reaction or like of like a new creativity. Is that authentic? Like, I mean, you're there, and I'm not trying to overblow like the Detroit thing, but as you're interacting with people in the space in that city there, did that kind of art renaissance or space or culture, is that a real thing, and is it growing?
I think so. I will say that I'm like kind of a homebody, so I don't know. I'm not like out and about a lot. But yeah, absolutely. I've been in Detroit since 2013, so over a decade. And I mean, even in that decade plus that I've been here, it's changed a lot. Definitely, it seems like that it's such a creative city, and it's kind of like I read Just Kids by Patti Smith, and she's talking about moving to New York, and like, they're living in these warehouses that don't have plumbing, and it's like a supply closet bathroom is where they get their water. And it gives me like that sort of vibe where it's like a very industrial city that is less industrial than it once was. There's still a lot of like the working class mentality. Like, I think we all in the Midwest, we just like love to work hard and feel good about
Yeah.
our hard work,
Yeah.
And so there's space. Detroit is a huge city, like land area wise. So there's a lot that is not populated, and so there's space. Like I would never be able to rent the space that I rented in Detroit for my book launch party, like in New York, in Brooklyn. Like that would be, quadruple to 10 times the price for me to be able to do that. And so I think in spaces like that, artists, it's like the natural progression, right? Like artists come in and we're like, all right, we can utilize this space. And then eventually that leads to like gentrification, and then everything is Williamsburg. So and that hasn't happened yet, but there are some neighborhoods in Detroit that's starting, where it's like, oh, when I first moved here, I could have bought a house in that neighborhood, and now I'm like, no way. But I think that's pretty common for cities. But to answer your question, there's a great creative energy here, and it's like, to me, it feels like a down to earth kind of grounded energy because of that sort of Midwest mindset. Yeah, so great place to
that
be.
makes a lot of sense to me. No, on the show, I like dropping into like whatever way I can, like the area that folks are on, or what's the vibe. And sometimes like there's these different pieces that make you think, because it's not just like for you. You're obviously like, hype gal for others, hype gal for yourself. But overall, too, there are stultifying atmospheres, and there are like expansive and creative atmospheres, and neither are perfect, but like you can be situated in a spot where, rather than have to explain each thing you're doing, somebody's like, oh, that's cool, yeah, go roll with that. And so like to help you.
Totally. Yeah, I think like that's something that is interesting, because I think there are, like, for example, I have friends in Brooklyn. I have friends in Portland. You're not too far from Portland, closer to Portland than Detroit for sure. So I can go to Portland or Brooklyn, and I can be like, oh yeah, I'm an artist. I do this. I make weird papier-mache shit. And people are like, hell yeah. Around here, there are some community, like some people I talk to who get it. And then there's some that are like, what? Because it's sort of that, again, Midwest mindset where it's like, I don't know what it is about like the socialization of people. I grew up in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, so like very rural.
Oh, UP.
Yeah, exactly. Closer to Wisconsin than Detroit.
Yeah.
But I think, and maybe it's like sort of the cold weather mindset and the immigrants that came in, like my family, I'm a fifth generation Uper, so it's quite a few generations removed since they came to the UP, but just sort of the like you put your head down, you work hard, you don't complain sort of mentality. And so I think growing up around that was a lot of the reason why I'm like, oh, it's frivolous for me to want to be an artist, even though it's so core to my being. And so there is a little bit of that mindset, I think, in the Midwest. It's just like not everyone is like a weird creative like they are in Brooklyn or in Portland or in even LA in a different way. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
feel very at home in those other bigger cities that are like freak culture. And that I mean that as a compliment. Um,
Fly your freak flag.
Yep, exactly. But Detroit has some of that, and also the cost of living is very low, and that's lovely. And I'm from this area, and my community is here, and the access to nature and the different seasons. Like there are a lot of reasons to love it here. So
Yeah,
pros and
yeah.
cons to everywhere, right?
Yeah, thanks. No, thanks for dropping us in there. I know I don't my head, I'm a huge horror film freak, and I think there was a couple filled in that kind of like almost like outdoor liminal space like in Detroit, and I was like just
Yeah.
dropping into that, like love that it's like almost like industrial horror, but just like that creativity of like what is in that space, or what
Yep.
is hidden, what is like beyond that door. So oh wow, so we covered a lot of stuff. Tell me why'd you start a podcast? And I know you do with the partner there. What about the podcast? Like what's the podcast been for you?
Yeah, our podcast, I kind of pitched it to my friend Lauren. She's a designer and has been for many years, and has primarily she worked for a marketing agency for like a year out of college, but then has primarily worked for herself. And she's been a great resource for me in terms of, especially when I was doing hand lettering. I was like, oh, Lauren's done lettering. I'm learning a lot from this friend. And we always just had really great conversations about philosophy, about creativity, about politics, about just all the stuff. And many times we would have these hours long conversations and be like, man, we should have recorded that. Like we had some good nuggets in there. And as I was starting to kind of step into this role of artist, of creative, of doing more sort of education and encouragement online, talking about prioritizing play, I was like, I think we have an interesting perspective that we can share, because you, Lauren, have all of the background of like going to art school and being a designer and working for yourself, being a freelancer for a decade. I am in this transition period where like I admire everything that you do, but I haven't been able to fully allow myself to do that. And so I'm kind of navigating these sort of like emerging artists or like new questions that she's been living for a decade.
Yeah.
And I was like, instead of just asking her and only me getting the answers, maybe we could share this.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then we giggle a lot, and we're very chaotic in terms of like we're working on lots of things. We love working with our hands, doing projects. And so we were like, let's do a season and just like see how it goes. And we really enjoyed it. And like we talked about earlier, like there you learn from conversations,
Oh
even
yeah.
if it's with the same person. It's just the topics that we talked about, the little nuggets of wisdom, even the cringe that like if I go back and listen to season 1 episodes and I'm like, why did I say that? Like, somebody related to it and like I learned. So yeah, that's kind of where that came from. Just like we have great conversations about lots of things, and we understand how like we're imperfect, we want to be chaotic, we want to be creative, and we live these lives that we're talking about. So yeah, that's where that came from.
Yeah, I like the well, I mean, I like the podcast format, which I see is like in its essence like populist and people based and accessible. And I think it was strange, like just in working on the podcast and like what started to develop, like as far as like connecting people, like my ideas and like where this came from, and like just like it was all organized into my head. So I realized one day I'm a labor organizer by
Okay.
trade in my day
Amazing.
job. So it was like the type of thing of like you think the word sucks, but like transferability, right? So like you're talking about like what do you know and like how it can translate. But I realized like either like habitually or in a way that was even more exciting to me that I was like organizing around art. Like at some point I just stepped back and be like, well, I'm an organizer by nature and I'm like putting this here and this here and this here and encountering this. And how'd you get to this person? Because I talked to that person. I saw them at a party and I didn't know they did photography and I talked to them, you know, and it all kind of, like I would develop, like there was a conscious development of that, but it was like, it was such a surprise to me that like, oh, I'm kind of like pulling it together like I would do with the workers that I represent. And I don't know, it just felt a lot of fun. It felt more powerful too, because like there was a lot of ways I interact that was just like, oh, I'm doing it in this way. And the number one question most people about my show is like, how the hell do you like find or invite these people? And it's all developed over time and it all makes intuitive sense, you know, like talking to you and your book, it all makes intuitive sense to me. But like on the outside is be like, how do you talk to like somebody who does like, is an exotic dancer like in LA and like, you know, like how did it, and I said, there's a path that led to like all these expressions. And also, and I don't know if you find like sometimes in your conversations, having the first conversation with somebody who does like this art thing that you have no friggin' clue what it is. Like for me, like I don't know, like people working with metal and stuff like that and be like, I want you on the show, like tell us the stuff and like what you think about. And it's just really open. It feels really cool and like a curious, like learning spot. I always like to learn, you know, and the podcast seems to me like a really good spot for that.
Oh, absolutely. And I love what you said about just like the connections, because I think for so long, and especially when I did my engineering job, like networking was, we talked about networking all the time. And it was like, I would go to these conferences and I would just feel just so like, oh, I don't want to talk to that person. And I like just want to go back to my hotel room, do my talk and go away. And since I have quit that career and become this person now fully, it's like every conversation is an opportunity for connection. I'm like you, very curious, love to learn. And when you're not approaching it from the perspective of like, I have to network and like get on good terms with this person, and instead you're like, what can I learn about this person? Those connections just naturally happen. And then, you know, in 5 years when I'm thinking about, oh yeah, like you said, metalsmithing, I don't know that person. Oh, this person does glass work, but maybe they know somebody who does metal. And it's just like naturally, again, when we're finding the things that light us up the most, we're curious about them, we're excited, we're meeting other people with those same values sort of naturally. Yeah. And then that network just naturally expands instead of it being like, I have to force this connection because this is a person I should know.
Yeah. And there's a piece of that, like, and I totally understand that as well, but it's almost like how you go into it. And obviously you be thinking about that with intentionality, but like, it's like, for me, it almost always seems like kind of impossible to get into things with the framework of it's a transaction. Like if I'm going to know, I'm going to be like, what's the last book you read that blew your mind? Right. And then for me, that's gonna open up so much stuff. Rather like, did you look at this protocol? And like, I know you're an expert. God bless everybody for like learning what they need to learn. But like, sure. Like in organizing or with network and such, is like, I always think ultimately it's like to know the human being and like how they're approaching it. Even technical knowledge. Like that's fine. Tell me technical shit that I need to know as well. But there's a humanity, I think, like that we're talking about that's missed when like, I need you for this, and you can't, if I can't make that transfer of what you mean to me, it's a failed conversation rather than being like, I heard your kid plays baseball. Like, you know, like human wise, like I don't know how to open it up in those. Maybe that's part of it too. I don't necessarily like quite know, or maybe not deeply interested in just opening up the relationship in that way, you know? I don't know.
Yeah. And I think like everyone I truly think everyone wants to be seen and understood for who they are. And when we're asking people about their personal lives, what do you like to do? What do you like to do for fun? What's the last book you read? what are your kids up to this weekend? Like those questions make them feel seen as a human instead of a cog in this machine. And I think that's all we all want.
And we all get bored with work. Like, I'm a labor
Yeah.
guy. Like, I love labor. Like, I cut my finger, I bleed the labor and all stuff. That's not it for me. Like, it's a huge, massive, massive chunk. And I get bored with things. Like, just, not that I'm bored with it, but like, it is not my first entry. It's not the first thing. Like, so, as fast as I am with like workers and what their experiences work and trying to make it better. Sometimes when you have conversations, like, I want to talk about a movie. Like, I really just want, or like whatever,
Yeah.
like opening it up. Or like what people like for art and music, music's an art conversation, right? So,
Yeah.
asking about like what you really dig on and stuff. So, and everybody, I want to let listeners know, Rachael Renae is your hype gal, as you say. All right. So let me ask you this question. I know you're a hype gal, and I like to be a hype gal, hype guy for everybody that I know. You say it even for yourself, or being for yourself. How the heck you be your own hype person? What do you mean? Like, what
Yeah.
are you thinking about?
There's a chapter in the book about that, because I think especially growing up in a small town, like I, as a little freak artist, felt deeply misunderstood. And I think that's a pretty common feeling that a lot of kids feel, whether you're from a rural area or not, right? Like, we're all just trying to figure out who we are. And I think that for so long, I was looking for permission externally. I was looking for someone to say, you're good at art, go to art school. You're good at this, do this. Oh, I'm expecting you to get married, have kids, buy a house, settle down forever. Do that. And so I was not wanting to do those things, but I was waiting for someone to say, you should do this, or like, this is what I'm expecting you to do, or now you have permission to do this. And so I think what I've realized in my own journey to getting here is that, like, we're the only ones who can give ourselves permission to live the way that we want to. And so we have to hype ourselves up for that permission. We have to give ourselves permission first.
Yeah.
No one is going to pop into your house and say, "Okay, now you're allowed." It's not going to happen. And I don't think anyone thinks, of course, like, logistically that's actually going to happen, but it's kind of like we're all waiting for the right time. I'll wait until I have more money, or I'll wait until I have more time, or I'll wait until my partner makes more money so they can support me doing my art.
Yeah.
And there's never the perfect circumstance. And so we have to trust in that yearning, that like desire for ourselves, and give ourselves permission to chase it. Maybe you can't quit your job today. Maybe you never quit your job, but can you do one small thing in the direction of that life that you're craving? And so when I say be your own hype gal or hype pal, it's, you gotta give yourself permission first, and then recognize that, like, if you're really excited about an idea and you're going to tell somebody about it, they're probably not going to get it. Or if they get it, they're not going to be as excited as you, because it's your idea. So maybe you have an idea for a painting, or like, I have this idea for, I ask the piñata question. I want to do these papier-mache like representations of the piñata answers that people give me. And the crucifix with pomegranate seeds would be an incredible one to make. So I think, but in explaining a lot of my like creative ideas, I'm watching people's eyes glaze over, and they're like, they want to be excited for me, but they don't get it.
Yeah.
And so I think in the past, I would have been like, oh yeah, I probably shouldn't do that, because like, oh, it didn't make sense to them. And now I'm like, I have to make it. People need to see it.
Yeah.
First to understand it. And even if they don't understand it or like it, I made it because the process of making it was important to me. So it's like, we have to remove that desire for permission and expectation that like everyone's going to be as stoked as we are for our art practices. It's just not going to happen. Like, yes, we'll have people that are our hype squad, and I will be one of them. I will enthusiastically support when someone's telling me about a project, but we got to do it for ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. It's, I don't know. It's just a really, in the times or in the spaces where it seems quiet, where you get lonely as an artist, no matter what, like those spaces there, and remembering that. Prioritize play is also an audiobook, I heard.
Yes.
You did the audio?
I did the
What
audio.
was it like? What
Oh
was
my
it
gosh,
like?
it was so much fun. I loved it. There are I mean, like you've read the book. I wrote it very much in my voice. And
Hmm.
so it made a lot of sense for me to read it, and I'm glad that I got the opportunity. I don't think that's always the case with authors.
Yeah, yeah.
And I just had a blast. I was like, "Can I do this as a job? Like, can I be reading other
I
people's audiobooks?" Because I think my enthusiasm comes across in the recording, and there are things like I wrote like "boo hiss," and then the audio director was like, "Do you want to actually like hiss?" And I was like, "Yeah, I really do want to actually just hiss into the microphone." So it was a blast. I loved it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my next iteration. I love audio books. I actually became fascinated by my listening stats. Like I've been listening like audiobooks. On Audible since like 2015, and I checked my stats recently. So that's like 11 years. But for 7 months of those 11 years, I was listening to books, which I'm like, that's a pretty good waking time
That's
to
a long
listen to
time.
books. So I always enjoy audiobook, and a lot of times I'll read it and do the audio thing, because like so I get my next audio book is Rachael Renae
Yeah.
reads Prioritize Play in hisses. In
Yep,
hisses
exactly. You'll get
during
to
the
hear the hiss.
I was excited. I think I had seen something there, and I saw. I was like, oh, because I always like, it's not always feasible or what have you for for them to produce an audio book, and
Mhm.
of course there's an interactivity type of thing, like of like for me the tactile. I want to experience both, but for me the tactile and the fact that like getting in the book and writing on it, and I would say too like I found myself like really, and I'm saying messing with like a little bit more of like coloring in like your illustrations and stuff like that. Just kind of like a lot of like tactile stuff that was very inviting. And which
Great.
is why every single listener is interested in art and interested in play. You really need to get Prioritize Play, Rachael Renae. I do have a big question, which is the titular name of the podcast, and might be like a bit more encompassing than everything we talked about. But I'm asking you, why is there something rather than nothing? Like why is there something rather than nothing?
Oh, what a great question. Because we make something. We have the opportunity to make something out of every experience rather than allowing ourselves to not
Yeah, yeah.
experience anything.
Oh, you got it in that short amount of time. Wow, like that's incredible. That's absolutely incredible.
I'm
Um,
only succinct at the end.
ah, sick, I mean, succinct is a beautiful thing. Perfectly timed, mic drop. I get it all, but
Sure.
that's
It's not for me usually.
it's like, what are we doing with Dart? We're playing and shooting the shit and talking about stuff
Mhm.
that's fun. Where do people find all your stuff? Books, podcasts, etc.
Yeah. So everything, you can get access to everything through my website, which is rachelrenae.com. And it's both names are spelled the non traditional way. So it's RACHAELRENAE.com. And my Instagram is the same, Rachael Renae, where I'm sharing little clips and tips and stuff, and just parts about my life, living this prioritized play lifestyle. But you can get info about the book, about the podcast, about my online community, which is called the Juice Box, because I talk about living a big, juicy life. All of
Hell
that
yeah.
on my website. So, yeah, thanks so much.
Oh my gosh, Rachel, and uh, in even on the book with the picture of your outfit on fleek and everything, just so everybody
Thank
knows.
you. That is
On
one of the
the
dresses that I put on when I'm trying to feel good. So
you got it. So everybody, I just truly, as you could tell, Rachel, it's great. It's great to talk with you. Thanks for putting this book out there. I think, if people get out a pen or a pencil or ask, answer funny questions or with their friends and stuff, I think like people are just on the path of doing something different, even if they just want to like disrupt the norm. I think a lot of things we talked about is like the momentum of how you're supposed to live, right? And
exactly.
everybody has that. And what's the job? And you're thinking, oh, engineering, and pays really well, and you're smart and you can do it. So if you're smart and you can do it, then you think, well, that's what I'm supposed to do. And then you're like, well, I can do it. But there's so many other type of things. So
Yeah.
thanks for your courage in the book, and listeners, I can't recommend it enough. And again, as we talked about, there's even an audio version if that's your pleasure. So
Absolutely.
prioritize play. Rachel, thanks for coming on to the podcast. Thanks for your podcast and creativity, and you rock. What can I say?
Thank you so much. This was such a lovely conversation. Thank you for inviting me and yeah, getting to have just a fun conversation about it. It was perfect. Thank you.
Hell yeah. Talk to you soon.
Okay, will do.
This is Something Rather Than Nothing.